This is the second part of a two-part conversation about one of Gordon Lightfoot's songs. You can find part one of this episode at www.lightfootpodcast.com, along with the rest of our episodes. I hope you enjoy the conclusion of the conversation between me and my guest. Thank you in advance for listening.
The first guest of the evening is truly a poet. He's an artist. He is a friend and an inspiration to anyone who has ever played the guitar or tried to write poetry. Would you please welcome Gordon Lightfoot?
Is there a song that's particularly fun to perform with the full band? And of course, all of them are going to be fun to a certain extent because you love Gord's music and you love making music together. But is there one in particular that your spirits kind of brighten when you're saying, okay, it's this point in the set, we're going to do this one, and this is always so much fun to play? What's the experience like for that?
Oh, that's a great question. I like You Are What I Am because it's kind of a bluegrass, upbeat feel to it. It's just a fun song, and we really lock in on it. It's not a greatest hit, but it's a great song because I think we're all quite rhythmic in the band. I'm a drummer, the drummer's a drummer. One that really surprised me was If You Could Read My Mind. I really have worked on that one. And that's a really fun one to sing because the way he sings it, I learned what he does in terms of how he sings slightly differently at different parts of that song. So it comes across as quite a strong song. But of course, everybody loves the song, regardless of what we're doing. It's all about the songs. The other one's Railroad Trilogy. We've worked so hard at that because it's like 3 songs in one, basically. You got to do a good job with that. And they're slowing down and speeding up in that song. So we have to work on that one constantly. And we even do Me and Bobby McGee, written by Chris Christopherson. People always love that song. We even do Farewell to Nova Scotia in our encore because Gord did it on the 1972 BBC show as a song that he just performed. So that's a song that's not even his. So we grab a few things obscurely that he also sang.
And well, you should, because although he was certainly unparalleled as a songwriter, every artist that I know of, including Dylan and Jim Croce and others, they covered other people's songs also. Certainly no mystery about that. How about the songs that you kind of had to fight to get into the set list? I imagine with 4 musicians, you're going to have people who have strong feelings about what songs they really want to have in the set. And I'm wondering if there's one that you really had to push for to get the other 3 guys to agree, where you had to go and say, look, guys, I really, really want to do this. And if you guys don't want to do it, then there's going to be a problem. Have you ever had a conflict like that with the other guys?
That's funny. Actually, the one that's sticking it out right now is Old Dan's Records because it's such a bizarre arrangement. And the fellows really have to learn that song well because it changes. It's not one you can memorize. You have to follow a chart basically on that one if you're going by the record. That one I wanted to include because it's a great fun song, get the audience clapping along. And I think that's the key thing. We have a lot of variety in the show. So a lot of them have to do with the feels and the beats and the tempos. Some of his songs like Go Go Girl has like a samba feel to it. That's the other thing I've learned about his music is just that his sense of rhythm as a drummer, he must have had a lot of good ideas when he was putting his songs together for different feels and beats, because they really all are different. It's not just straight ahead country music. It's hard to define. He's a bit like Johnny Cash. I mean, he's got an R&B feel in some of his songs. He's got Latin. He's got a bossa nova. I'm talking in terms of drumming beat. It just creates a lot of variety, which is nice in a live performance with all the great songs he did. Just a lot of variety, you know. It's not like doing Conway Twitty show where everything's pretty much straight ahead country, one after another, you know.
The thing that you're mentioning as we're talking about this is that you mentioned Lightfoot's sense of rhythm. And he was very lucky to work with drummers and percussionists who fit right into the grooves that he was thinking and that he wanted. Barry Keane has done a great job playing with the band live, and the studio work done by Jim Gordon, I think, is second to none. He was the first drummer that I really realized, okay, he's making this record really come alive. So I think in that sense, he's been extraordinarily lucky to have people who were part of the rhythm section who knew what he wanted.
Yeah, Barry Keane, I guess, was with Ian Tyson, I think, before he hooked up with Gordon Lightfoot. So he'd obviously been kicking around as a great player. And from what I gathered, Gord just wanted less drums as possible, which is really hard to do as a drummer. That requires a lot of discipline to play quietly. Barry Keane is like a percussionist as far as I'm concerned. I was in a percussion ensemble in high school with a great drum teacher I had, and we studied from Barry Keane's book for a reason. And my drum teacher knew Barry Keane was one of the best. So that's what we learned from his book. That's how highly I put him. He plays so quietly with the feels. You can barely hear his bass drum, but it's there. And our drummer does quite a good job of duplicating that. But Barry is the best at being quiet. Because I think that's the thing. The music's like heavy on guitars, right? Acoustic guitars. And Gord wants to hear all that stuff mainly. The drummer's really just there to give him the feel and the tempo, but not to be a big part of the sound. Except, of course, at Edmund Fitzgerald, there's some good drums.
Well, yeah, or Carefree Highway, or, some of the others that are really from the peak of his commercial popularity. But it does explain why there was no drummer on live performances for a very, very long time. It was guitar, steel guitar, and bass. And then at some point, they had Barry come on as a touring drummer.
I think I read somewhere I mentioned, he said it made it a lot easier on, which actually was the same thing with us. We started out as a trio without the drums, but boy, I'll tell you, it was really hard to do what Gord was doing. In that 72 series on the BBC, he's at his absolute peak on that show, I think. His rhythm guitar playing, he's driving the whole thing, the whole show. It's incredible playing. That is really hard to do as a trio. So we really benefited by getting our drummer too. It really took a lot of pressure off me as a rhythm guitar player because you're trying to sing as well. Gord is in another stratosphere from the rest of us. So,
oh, no doubt. Yeah.
I can understand why he was happy to get the drummer too. I'm sure he was strumming his head off, every night trying to make that drum sound happen to fill out the rhythm. And the great thing is with the drums, now I notice Gord, when I watch him play in a video in concert, he's playing very little because there's so much instrumentation going on. He's not having to play like he did when he was younger.
And I think that's a function of him wanting to think beyond the settings that he was using, and also a function of time and age, because you're only going to have so much energy. And to go out and essentially lead the band, which is what Gord did for years and years and years, it's not always going to work. And as you get older, you're going to have less energy. I think that's just a function of time. Is there something about Gordon Lightfoot as an artist or a person that you wish more people understood? And the reason I ask that is that Gord had a very long moment in the sun, and then in the late 70s and through the 80s, I don't want to say he was completely out of the public eye, but he certainly was not the headliner that he had been. Certainly, people didn't forget about him, but he wasn't making hits as much anymore. So I'm wondering, is there anything that in 2026 you wish people understood more about him, either as a man or as a musician?
The one interesting thing is the fact that his goal was to be a drummer. So that's an interesting little side bit that most people don't know about him. He actually is a drummer, and he's a singer and guitar player. As a person, I only got to meet him once. He was very humble and very hardworking. And he was also a very smart businessman, I believe, too, the way he handled his career. It's quite something. He actually, towards the end of his life, I think he finally admitted that he might have some talent. Can you imagine? So that's how humble he was. That probably kept him working hard and kept him grounded. And I have to laugh because the question you asked me, I saw him interviewed by somebody on TV. It's on YouTube there, and it's back in about the 80s, after the Edmund Fitzgerald. And the guy asked the same question. He said, you didn't have any follow-up hits after Edmund Fitzgerald and that. And his response was, well, I think I had a pretty good run of it. Great way to answer it, because actually he has a ton of songs that were hits and on the radio. So he didn't really need any more after that. And that's the decision he made, was to not write anymore. Actually, I read that in his biography. And to just focus on touring because they love performing. And he had so much material, he didn't need to write anymore. But actually, some of his later albums are great. There's some great stuff on there, too. My dad really liked that album, Painter Passing Through. It's a great album and got a modern sound to it. That might be another thing for people to check out that album, because it's a great album.
You're listening to Carefree Highway Revisited. We'll be right back after a word from a podcast partner or two.
Radio is so much different than it was in the 80s. We had it all. The music, the movies, the DJs, and morning shows. Back to the 80s Radio is a show from the 80s in podcast form. We bring the memories from that awesome decade back. Join Toscano and Chang every Friday as they take you on a ride back in time, sharing their experiences and laughs. Stop on by and discover some of the wacky things this crazy duo comes up with. They talk about it all, the good, the bad, and the ugly of the greatest decade. Don't miss the greatest 80s podcast in the world. Back to the 80s Radio.
Is that song really a cover? What instrument are they playing there? What do those crazy lyrics mean? If you're the kind of person who thinks about stuff like that, you're in luck because I've got just the podcast for you. How Good It Is chooses a single song each episode and takes a dive into the story behind the song and the artist who made it famous. I'm Claude Call. You can find me in your favorite podcast software or just point your browser to howgooditis.com.
How good it is.
The fact that you're mentioning A Painter Passing Through, which I think came out in 96, I think it's a tribute to the fact that he did have some staying power as an artist. And the fact that he said after Edmund Fitzgerald and Sundown and all that stuff, I mean, he was certainly doing better than most artists. They dream of getting just one record done, never mind having a song in the top 10, the top 3, or number 1 in the charts. And Gord managed to do that. I think that says a lot about him.
Just a side note, I met some fellow when I was young who was in the music business, and he was looking at the industry. And he said to me, there's a handful of people, you can count them on your fingers on one hand, that have made enough money to actually say they can retire as musicians. And I think Gord's name was on that list. That's kind of the music business for you, though. Like I said, I think he was a very smart businessman, too, and obviously managed things well and had good management. And he actually maintained control of his management with his sister, I believe, also running his office. And that's unique in the music business. And I do the same thing with my tributes. I manage and run our shows completely on my own, and I have complete control of it. And there are a lot of advantages to that because someone's not setting your schedule. And that might have given Gord his longevity. He wasn't being run all ragged all over the place.
Right. I think most artists at some point, especially these days, are kind of plagued with greedy managers who say, come on, man, you got to go out there and do another show. Money, money, money. I think part of the reason that Lightfoot was immune to that was because he did not leave Canada. He insisted on keeping his base of operations in and around Toronto rather than going to Hollywood or New York. And so he was beyond the reach of somebody coming in and saying, okay, well, this is what you've got to do. When I think of folk singers in particular, and I know that he didn't fit neatly into any one category, but for the sake of simplicity, I'll say that he was a folk singer. Very few of them could say that they'd made enough money so that they would never have had to work again. And he chose to keep touring and keep writing because he loved it. But he could have probably, after the most recent real bout of health, he could probably have just shown up every year at Mariposa, and that would have been the end of it. He wouldn't have needed to do anything else. And again, very few people can say that. We've touched on this a little bit, Ward. Do you ever feel a sense of responsibility or stewardship towards keeping Gord's music alive for new audiences? Or, as my last guest, John Gracie, said, Gord's music stands on its own. It doesn't need anybody to preserve it.
Yeah, it does stand on its own, but where do you go see it live? I think that's the great thing, is that you can keep his music live and people can come out to shows and experience it all over again. So that's where I feel a huge responsibility to do it well, to do the performances as well as we can. That's one thing I've learned. You cannot mail in a performance on any show. Once you start doing that, it's the end of your show. So that's the way I look at it. It's a privilege to sing the songs, and you have to do the best you can because you owe it to him. And not only that, but you want to keep your reputation. You better do a good job with Gord because, man, he is the best. That's just the way I feel about it. I feel a huge responsibility because he's so good. That's the thing. He's so good. It's a totally different thing to be doing some other artists that the music's a lot more simple. But that's why I've found the best players I can to do it. I couldn't have done this without the top musicians I've got in the show, and I will only add good musicians if we add a steel player. I don't know if that's answered your question, but yeah, I feel a huge responsibility, and it all comes down to quality. That's why we put a lot of work into it and a lot of research. And I didn't even launch the show until we practiced for months and months. Personally, like I had to do a lot of work before I even started to perform live. So yeah, huge responsibility. And just the fact that actually Gord was a member of the gym where my dad was a member of the gym. And I got to meet him one day at the club, lying on a mat stretching. And I didn't want to ask him about his music. My dad just introduced me to him and I said hi to him. But he came across to me as a very humble, down-to-earth person and very empathetic. He could pick up right away on the relationship I had with my father, which was very strong relationship. Ward was a very interesting human being that way.
Oh, yeah. And that is consistent with everything I've ever heard about the man. I never got to meet him personally, and I will always wish that I did. But in a sense, and I said this to John when I was doing my episode with him, in some sense, that's my raison d'etre for this podcast, is to keep the music alive in some small way. Is there a Lightfoot song that you or the band still dream of performing live? One that you haven't done yet because you're thinking, oh, wow, this is out of my range, or it's too complex, or it's too obscure? Is there one that you're kind of keeping in your back pocket and hoping that you get a chance to add it into the repertoire?
Bitter Green, we haven't added into the repertoire yet, but our lead guitar player, John, who's really the leader of the musicality of the show, he wants to add that song. And after the show we did in Guelph last week, the first person mentioned, what about Bitter Green? So I said, it's next on the list. But yeah, there's some that I'll never be able to sing, like that one that you're working on. There's no way. I'm not operatic enough to pull that off. And I guess that's the great thing. He had so many songs and so many great hits on the radio. They tend to be ones that I can sing. But, you know, like Fair on 8th Avenue is just like the amount of emotion in that song and voice. That's a tricky one to do, too, I can imagine.
Mm-hmm. If Lightfoot was alive and in full control of his senses, and if he were attending a show by Gord's Gold, what would you want him to notice about your performance?
I just hope that he noticed how much work we've put into it and how passionate we are. And I think that would come across to him because he was a very genuine person. I think he would know that. And I think he would have a fairly high standard if people are going to be outdoing his material. So I think we're doing a good job of it. I'd be confident enough to do it in front of him at this point. He's very generous too. Even if you weren't doing it fabulously, he would I'm sure give you an endorsement. But I think any tips that he could give me would be fabulous too.
Oh yeah. I mean, who wouldn't want to take, musical notes from Gordon Lightfoot, especially in his own songs? So where can people find out about either the Gord's Gold tribute or the Johnny Cash tribute? What's the best way for people to find out about where you're appearing or the recordings that you have done with either one of those combinations? Yeah, sure. GordsGoldLive.com. That's the website for the Gordon Lightfoot tribute. GordsGoldLive.com. And we're also on Facebook with the Gord's Gold page. And there'll be some video clips and things of our performance and audio recordings as well on the website. You can hear a little bit. Our tour dates are on there, already booked into some for next year. We've got shows coming up this fall. You can go straight through the website to find tickets and the locations. And for the Johnny Cash, it's cashtributeshow.com. And it's called We Walk the Line, which is on Facebook as well, where we walk the line. So I started the Johnny Cash tribute with 3 shows in a theater one year, and it's up to 20 a year now. We've been across the country in major theaters. I think I could confidently say we're the #1 Johnny Cash show in Canada now in terms of sales. The Gordon Lightfoot is just a startup now at this point. And for me, as a business, it's just going to grow gradually, I believe. I think the good thing is I'm only 61, so I think I can do it for quite a while and keep it going. But you need to have that strength and fitness, which is why I think he was in the gym a lot.
I've actually had to get myself back in shape to sing his music.
I think that says something about the complexity of his music, but it also says a lot about your dedication to your music, whether it's for Cash or Lightfoot. And it's another reason why I was happy that you were able to come on the show today, because it shows that you're working really hard at singing the praises, literally, of these two men. And so I wanted to thank you again. The man's name is Ward Cornforth. He works with Gord's Gold, a tribute to Gordon Lightfoot, and also We Walk the Line, a tribute to Johnny Cash. They will be coming to a town near you in Canada, and maybe someday down the west coast of the United States, because if that ever happens, I'll definitely buy a ticket. Ward, thank you so much for being on the show with me today. I'm going to listen for your recordings, and I hope to have you on the show again sometime soon.
Thank you very much. I'd be happy to come back anytime, and keep up the great work you're doing. It's fabulous. Thank you so much.
You can find all our episodes on www.lightfootpodcast.com, and I hope you'll tell someone about the show and give it a positive review wherever you get your listening matter. Until we meet again, this is Mike Messner reminding you, run for the roses, but don't forget to stop and smell them. We'll see you next time along the Carefree Highway.